simulator is a tool to reproduce as accurately as possible the experience of driving a real Formula One car, but in a test rig in a virtual world. So we try and make it as realistic as possible for the driver, but almost more importantly than that, there is a computer model of the vehicle running in the background that behaves in the same way as the real car. And that's incredibly important because it means that when we make a change to that car, a setup change, for example, on the suspension, then it responds in the same way, and the driver can feel that change and give feedback on whether it's better or worse.
The simulator is designed to be as close to real life as possible, so everything is simulated to the best that it can be. We have force feedback in the steering wheel, the chassis moves a little bit. The TV screens are actually 5 projectors and they're really high resolution, so we get as much information as possible into me, the driver, through my hands, through my eyes. The only thing that's really hard to mimic is the high G-force, so we don't give me 5G, 6G as you would under braking, but you still get some of that force and you move about and bounce around a bit. So yeah, it's as close as it can be without kind of throwing you across a room at 100 miles an hour.
Of course, in the car we have an awful lot of sensors. They're measuring all the different systems in the car, and we use that to match the simulator to the real car's behaviour. So we try to replicate the real conditions as accurately as possible. With regards to wind, these cars are very sensitive to wind because of the high level of downforce in the car. And this is very important, particularly at a track like Ricard, where it's quite often windy, and more significantly, the wind conditions can change over a weekend, and we can replicate those changes in the simulator before the event and understand how the car will respond to that and how we might need to make adjustments in order to compensate.
We try not to actually simulate variables because the idea of the simulator is actually to keep it as consistent as possible. So we get a lot of good information like wind profile, track temperature, tyre temperature, but then we keep that consistent. So we won't try and simulate too much fuel load or tyre wear or changing wind direction, because actually our goal is to be able to be repeatable in our changes. So we'll very much do what we'd call like a A-B-A test. So you go from setup A to setup B and then back to setup A, and if everything's changing in between that, you can't have repeatability.
A good simulator driver has a number of characteristics. They need to be very consistent because that's a large part of what we do, and they also need to be able to map what they're feeling in the simulator to how the real car might be behaving. Probably the most important thing is that they need to be really fast as well, because we are asking them to put the car on its limit as they would at the track, and so they need to do that in the simulator just as much as they would in reality.
You want to be driving as realistically as you can for real life, but what might change slightly is between Fernando and Esteban. They had some slight changes in maybe how they take one corner, and I just had to kind of copy the way he was driving it just to get it to match up correctly. So you're not changing your driving style particularly for the simulator, but actually more making sure that it's correct for real life.
Formula One's development is incredibly quick at the moment. When there's a rules change like we've had this year, the cars evolve so quickly. We're always trying to keep up with that, often ahead in the simulator because we're trying out new ideas, new development directions that might make it onto the car in the next few races. At the moment, it's a very exciting time. The cars are being developed incredibly quickly, and we're also looking to consolidate on all the learning we've done this year, put it into next year's car.